Hello everyone, and welcome to the Databricks Setup lecture. Databricks is a company started by the creator of Spark that provides clusters that run on top of Amazon Web Services and adds a convenience feature of having a notebook system of their own already set up and the ability to quickly add files, either from storage like Amazon S3 or from your local computer. It has a free community version that supports a 6 GB cluster. Obviously 6 GB is small enough that you wouldn't really need big data, but that's the free version, so it makes sense. They have their own paid versions as well. And it also has its own storage format known as Databricks file storage, so we'll be showing you how to do that as well. And this sort of table format, that's what they call it, needs to be accessed in a particular way. So after we set up the Databricks notebook and upload some data, I'm going to show you quickly how you can create a data frame off of a table in the Databricks format. Alright, so again, we're going to walk you through how to set up a Databricks account, how you can upload data, and then set it as a data frame so that you can continue on with the rest of the course. As far as recommending Databricks, I would recommend it for people who want the quickest online setup. It really doesn't take that much time, but make sure you actually have a good internet connection to use Databricks. Alright, now to get started, we're going to go to databricks.com/try-databricks. And you're going to need an email that you can have access to, as well as your name and then some company name. So let's head over to this website and show you what that's all about. Alright, here I am at that link, and you see two versions, the full platform trial and then the community edition. The full platform trial, that has everything: unlimited clusters, notebooks, dashboards, interactive guide to Spark and Databricks, business intelligence tools, and you get a 14-day free trial, excluding the Amazon Web Service charges that this platform runs on top of. Now, we won't be using that. Instead, we'll be using the Community Edition, which has that mini 6 GB cluster, the interactive notebooks and dashboards, and everything you do, I believe, is public, so anyone can just view it. All right, let's click on this Start Today, and this will take you to a login page. Well, a sign-up page, I should say. And then what we're going to do is you're going to fill out your first name, last name, select the company name, or just kind of make one up if you don't have one. Then your work email, and this is going to be an email that you can actually log into because they're going to send you a confirmation link. You'll click on that confirmation link and that will take you to the login page. Then make up a password, confirm that password. You don't need to provide a phone number, and then intended use case, we can say taking an online course and describe your role, some student, I'm not a robot, and then sign up. Right. Okay, so fill that out and then go check for your email, for the confirmation email, and then click on that login link. I'm going to hop forward in time to the actual login page and then walk through what that actually looks like. Alright, once you fill that in your email, you should see something that looks like this: Welcome to Databricks Community Edition, and then you want to verify your email address, and then you click on that link, and then what you're going to do is just sign in. You can see here I'm using a temporary email address, so it won't work forever. Alright, and then once you're logged in, it's going to look something like this. It's going to take a little bit of time to connect, but this is what the Databricks Community Edition looks like. And there's a lot of featured notebooks, which are kind of nice guides. For instance, if you're interested in Databricks for data scientists, or maybe Python or R, Databricks Guide, you can just click on any of these, and they're already notebooks that are set up with markdown text, explanatory text, plus some extra code in there. For instance, this one's a Scala version. So once it's done loading, you can check it out. So this one in particular is done in Scala, and you can see here it says Welcome to Databricks. It has some introduction series, and they have other ones for Python, for data engineering, etc. And it's just a bunch of explanatory text plus different examples. So there are some abilities for visualization here that we're not going to really cover in this course because they're more specific to Databricks formatting, but they are available as options. Okay, and you can see here they're kind of really focusing on the Spark SQL aspect of it. Now, realistically, what you're going to do is when you come to Databricks, this home page, you will click on New Notebook, but before you actually create a notebook, you need to create a cluster to connect it to. So click on Cluster under New, and let's give this a cluster name. Call it My First Cluster, and then we're going to be using the Spark 2.1 auto updating with Scala 2.10. You can also do Scala 2.11, but I don't want to go to the absolute latest in case there's any bugs there. So we'll keep it with this one, and instance, that's fine. AWS, that's also fine. And let's create a cluster. So this is going to create that 6 GB cluster, and it's actually creating it on Amazon Web Services. So keep in mind that Databricks is basically running on top of Amazon Web Services and providing this sort of convenience factor, which is really what you're paying for. plus some of those visualization tools and business intelligence tools. Okay, so while this cluster is created, we're going to see something like pending, and eventually it will say something like running or created. And you can see your current active clusters as well as your terminated clusters. And there it is, it's currently running. So once your cluster is running, you can come back to Home or Databricks, and then we're going to click on New Notebook. You can also do this by going to Workspace and then seeing your other notebooks there, but we'll click on Notebook. We'll give it a name, something like My First Notebook. Select Python as your language. You can see all the various API languages for Spark, but we'll stick with Python, and then we want to connect it to a cluster. And in this case, we only get one option, a cluster, because we're running the Community Edition, so let's create it. Great. And so this is what the notebook format looks like on Databricks. This is a Databricks notebook. It's really, really similar to a Jupyter notebook, runs a lot of the same things. And to test that this is actually working, you're going to say import PySpark, and then you do Shift-Enter to run. And there it is. So it tells you how long the command took, etc., the time you ran it at on your first cluster. So now I want to walk through how you would actually upload data to Databricks, and then how you can call it into a data frame, which is what we're going to be working with throughout the rest of the course. So click on Tables here, and Tables is basically where you store the data frame data. So click over here on Create Table, and it's going to ask you what is the data source. So we'll basically be working with files that I provided you from that zip file download, but you can also do things like connect it to Amazon S3 service, or even connect it to like a SQL engine, so you can see the URL, the username, the password, and then the actual query you're doing. But S3, you'd provide your key, your secret access key, the bucket name, then you could browse the bucket for some data. But we'll just do a local file, and I'm going to click here, and I will upload. I already have this My Data. This is a CSV file, even though it has that little Excel icon. It's just a very simple CSV file, and that's basically what we're going to be working with for most of the course. And once you've done that, it's a really small file. It's been uploaded to DBFS, so that Databricks format, and you can see here Databricks file system. And what we're going to do is say, preview table, and then it's going to ask you to fill in some table details. So we'll call this My Table for a table name. It is a CSV file, and then it's going to try to detect what is the delimiter, that is, what is actually separating the columns themselves. For all comma-separated variables, it's almost always a comma, at least all the ones I'm providing you. But sometimes they also do things like a pipe operator, or maybe even a tab, so keep that in mind. And you'll notice here, a lot of times Spark will read the first line not as a header by default. So if we look at what my table actually looks like, I have a column of names and a column of sales figures, but these first two instances in the first row is the actual column names. So I want to detect that the first row is the header. And there it is. We have name and sales, and string is name, but sales is not a string. So I also want to set up the data type this is. We can either set this as like a double or a floating point, but I'm going to be setting this up as an integer because I can see here that they're all integers. And then I'm going to create the table. Obviously, if you had something like 100.5, you would set it up as a floating point number. So let's create that table. And now I can see my table has been created. So let me show you how you can actually access this data in the notebook system. So you come back to Workspace. You come back to My First Notebook. Double click on it. Here we are. So we're going to be working with something called data frames, and we'll talk a lot more about this, but I just want to show you how you can grab that table data as a data frame. So in order to actually access all the data and save it to a data frame, what we're going to end up doing is using what's known as a SQL context and a little bit of SQL code or SQL syntax. So we'll have whatever you want to call the data frame. It's really common to just call it df or data or my data frame, etc. I'll call it df, and then I'm going to set it equal to, and I will call a SQL context. Usually if you're running Spark on another system, you would have to import SQL context and set it up, but Databricks does this automatically for you. It's kind of part of the convenience. And then you're going to say .SQL, and then what you're going to write here is select space asterisk from, and then whatever you happen to call the table. So if you check back on table, you can always click on this. It'll say whatever you call the table, we'll call my table, and then you're going to run Shift-Enter to actually run this. And this is essentially a SQL query in the SQL context, so it's running on top of Spark SQL. It's grabbing everything in that table and setting it to the data frame. And the data frame is what we're going to be working with throughout the rest of the course. So this particular line, this is just for Databricks users. We won't really be seeing this sort of thing throughout the rest of the course, but if you decide Databricks, it's for you, you really like it, that's what you're going to have to do throughout the rest of the course. So then we can say df, and if you just say df and run this shift enter, it's going to say, hey, I have a data frame here. Remember we discussed transformations and actions. If we actually want to show this, I need to call an action to show it. So you say .show, open and close parentheses, shift enter, and you can see here we have the name, the sales, and then the actual values. And that's the very basics of using the Databricks platform. And I also want to point out, I do not work for Databricks. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I don't get a kickback if you guys decide to sign up for their paid program. The only reason I really show it as a private company which is offering a solution is because Databricks was founded by the creator of Spark. So not many companies are founded by the actual creator of the software framework that they're built upon. So that's really why I wanted to show you Databricks and why it's kind of important that you know the name in this sort of ecosystem. Okay, so that's it for Databricks. Feel free to decide to use it if it felt like a good connection for you, but we're going to move on to a couple more installation options. But if you're done with this, feel free to move forward to the actual Python Crash course or the Spark Data Frame section. Thanks, and I'll see you at the next lecture.